Okay. Good morning, all. Thank you for joining me in this morning's ZBrush stream. Morning for me in LA. Let's see here. So I am streaming for Pixelogic ZBrush Live. And if you scroll down here in pixelogic.com ZBrushLIVE presenters, you can find me right there, Aiman Akhtar. And you can see I'm streaming Mondays 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. You can see some of my artwork. Let's see here. I've been working on my own line of mystery box toys, fungosaurs, those dinosaur mushroom hybrids, launching those this November, and a bunch of 3D print related projects, fashion, collectibles, and you can catch all my previous streams here and catch up with what we've been up to. I usually work on my fungosaurs, or I start like really big 3D print projects, and right now we're working on this character. It's a character for a friend of mine, concept artist Ryan Winch, his own IP book series called Space Pilgrim. And last week I worked mostly on this backpack, and today I kind of want to just get the whole character roughed out and all the base shapes blocked in, and I want to do a little mini 3D print of it. So about 28 millimeters, and send it over to my Form 2 that you see behind me. It's good to get something printed as quickly as you can, in my opinion, so you can see where the shapes and volumes are working, what's not, and then if this is going to be structurally stable. He's got a pretty giant backpack, so I want to make sure that he doesn't topple over, things like that. So I'm going to get to that very shortly. I usually do a quick intro of myself, so for those of you that don't know me and my background, I'm a 3D artist based in LA. You can see more of my work at aiman3d.com. And in the past 4 years, I've been specializing a lot in 3D printing. So, like I said, launching my own toy line that's coming this November. That's fungosaurs. Those were all 3D printed and prototyped on a Form 2, which you see behind me. And I like to make stuff to put on my corgi, Kuma. This one kind of blew up on Reddit for a while. Little Black Panther mask. And this one was printed on my Raise 3D N2 Plus, which is the FDM printer you see behind me there. That one. I worked on some really large scale prints professionally. This one with Alliance Studios. And another one. And I've also worked on some smaller scale stuff. So this is 3D printing for stop motion animation at Stupid Buddy Studios. They're the makers of Robot Chicken, right here in Burbank. Also done a lot of vinyl toy prototyping and stuff for concept art 3D printing. Now this one actually sculpted in VR and then printed. So anyways, you can check out more of my work at aiman3d.com. Check out the previous presentations and streams that I've done on pixelogic.com, ZBrushLIVE, author Aiman Akhtar. And if you are wanting to keep in touch with fungosaurs and see this project develop and kind of see how I went about it, you can follow us on Instagram fungosaurs, because I kind of post a lot of my process and progress as I go. Like, we just launched the first beta testing for this, and I just made my first dev diary. So I'll post the dev diary link in the chat's logs. Let me actually double check that that is all working, and I can hear you and see you, all of you. There's the Twitchin'. There is hey all, thanks for joining me. I'm pretty proud of my first ever game development diary, so happy to share that with you guys. And I am here on Facebook and Twitch. I'll be able to take your questions, so if you have any questions, just shoot them here. Meow. Dev diary. Okay, cool. Let's see. Joanne Raguda here. Hey Joanne, how's it going? Side effects, what up, man? Okay, I'm gonna put this off to the side, and let's jump right into ZBrush today. Let's see, I'm gonna double check my OBS to see that my streaming window is kind of out of the way, not in your face. Let me shrink that down a little bit. Focus on the work. Alright, so this character, like I said, we were mostly working on the backpack last week. Kind of got that ready to a point for, you know, miniature printing and just concept. If I do want to go in later and like really clean it up, I can. But this will be good enough to print at like this scale and then just see how it's looking, how it's turning out. And then I can always go in and refine and retopologize and perfect and sharpen. Yeah, because I'm still not really sure, based on his concept, where I want these backpack straps to start. I might end up changing some of this stuff anyway. Alright, so no backpack today. Let me load up the concept art. I'll go to texture import. There's the statue turn. So I'll bring that in. And I'm going to add it to my spotlight. Now when you're working with Spotlight as your main image plane, you have to go down to Brush, Samples, and turn off Spotlight Projection. Otherwise you won't be able to smooth, or a bunch of your brushes won't work. So make sure to go under Brush, Samples, turn off Spotlight Projection. Alright, so just looking at this, the main things I want to work on are just adding all of the elements that I need. So right now I still don't really have the straps, this giant, I don't know, chest piece that the straps kind of strap into, a bit more definition on the gloves and the shoes and the feet and the face. So that's basically what I'm going for today, trying to get an overall kind of pass on everything. And let's see how far we get. I've got 2 hours, so I'm just going to keep sculpting until the timer rings at 10 o'clock. I'll move this stuff over to here so I can reference it. And with Spotlight, you can also adjust the opacity. So I can just kind of fade it off into the background as I work. You know what? Actually, just keeping it consistent for you guys, it might be better if I kept it over to this side. And I've actually got the reference image pulled up on my second monitor, so I'll be able to see it. There we go. UI organization. Our dreamer, hi, what's going on? See? Cool, cool. Alright, so if you guys have any questions at any time, just shoot them in here about my process, about 3D printing, about the industry, whatever you want to ask. I'm going to just be sculpting away on this character. And let's turn up some music. Let's see here. Alright, starting with my insert primitives brush. The first thing I want to do is just lay a bunch of stuff in here. Now I want some of this to be buried a bit deeper into the mesh. So I can just come adjust this thing I've got in my UI here. For you guys, that's under Brush Depth. Solo this out. The one downside of soloing sometimes that it hides this mesh that I like to see. Anyone coming to the ZBrush Summit this week? If you are, I will see you there. I'll try to attend, I don't know, at least a few of the days. Alright, this one looks like it got a little big. I'm going to grab that. Scale it down a bit. Just keeping all these a relative scale to each other. Damn it. Okay, looks like there is a bit of a hole in that one. So what might be best is to use this one. Damn it. And then move it in. Alright, looks like all of these bits are pretty triangular. Not triangular, rectangular. So I'm going to select all of these and kind of stretch them out a bit. When you tap on like a surface that's like going in one direction, the Pixelogic's transpose tool, it'll just kind of map itself to that direction, and you can just push and pull things in that direction. It's pretty handy. playing with these primitives, trying to get them into place. Looking like each other. And then I'm going to move on. What I wanted to do, since I see that there's a couple of these straps, not just the one, I can just take the same one, duplicate it. Alright. You can add to a selection by Control-Shift dragging onto itself. So I split those points, and now I duplicate them. That way, I can quickly grab them and move them where I want. Thought I masked off everything else. There we go. Moving and scaling. Scaling and moving. Alright. I think I got the hang of this now. And I'm moving it out, and I'm scaling it down. So I don't really need to see the reference that much to start it off. Okay. Cool, so we've got the base shape for the belt snap, or where the belts are going to snap into. We've got the back shape, so let's find a way to connect these to start creating these straps. Now, there are many different ways we could go about this. Let me first save my scene. Call this Logan 3. Because this is our third pass at the character. Alright, we've got a whole bunch of IMM clothing parts. You've got any of these IMM brushes. You can basically click on them and press M, and you'll see all the parts that come built in. These all come with ZBrush. I'm just going to click on this one. Actually, this I might have downloaded. I'm not really sure. IMM parts by Pixelogic. Nope. Base mesh type. So I'm going to go and click on this miscellaneous 08 and see what this can do. So it kind of draws out a long shaft, and that's not really what we want. I mean, I could draw this out and then just tweak it and pose it in place, but I'm thinking since we have an IMM brush, we can take advantage of IMM curves. That one probably is not ideal. We want something even simpler. I might even go with a cube or create my own. Let's see. IMM. There's IMM model kit. All sorts of fun mechanical parts for us to quickly kit bash stuff together and not have to build everything. But what I want is so simple, I might as well just make it. So I'm going to just go to a clear scene. I'll just press Control N to do that. And I'm going to click on Cube 3D. And I'll draw this out. And I'll just use my, let's see, make polymesh 3D first. Make this a bit longer. That's basically what I wanted. And I'll go ahead and Dynamesh it. And start smoothing it out a bit. From the top and the bottom. Alright, nice and smooth. Alright, that should be good. And I might actually do something a bit more fun with it. Duplicate it. Let's see, it should be at origin, center, center now. So I can even use my deformation menu to size down a bit. Let's see if we can see what's happening there. If you turn on transparency mode, you'll be able to see it. And I'll drag that part down. And I will duplicate that part. And I'll drag that part up. There we go. Let's merge these together. And I think just for the sake of making it a bit easier, I'm going to make these a bit smaller along the side. Alright, that's what we want, the shape. I'm going to go to Dynamesh. I will Dynamesh the whole thing. Unify the groups by pressing Control W. And it's about 230k polys. You know what? I'm not really worried about poly count right now. So I think that should be cool for us. Let's try to make an insert curve mesh brush out of this. Might work, might not. We'll give it a shot. So what I want to do is have a custom strap kind of come out of this shape. So let's try first, while we're looking at it right from the top down, just go to brushes and click create insert mesh. Let's see what happens. Let's make a new one. There it is, our PMD Cube 3D. Should have named it first, but oh well. Let's see how this works right now. Right now, when I draw it, it kind of draws out, and it'll sit above or below the surface however much I use the depth slider. But that's not what I want to do. What I wanted to do is behave kind of like a curve. So I'll go under, I believe, stroke, and turn on curve mode. Let's see what happens now. Now it's kind of becoming a strap. Already, with just one click of a button, it's kind of blending into itself. And you can adjust a lot of options under this. So there's a curve step that's set to 1. So let's lower that. You can do as a line, which is a useful tool, because it'll kind of lay them all out like a strap. And this is basically what I want. But I want to be able to control it a bit better. So that's what I want, to give me kind of a sense of a strap. Let's see if it works. It'll get a bit janky once I take it off mesh, but I should be able to rotate it and get it kind of looking the way I want pretty quickly. And we can use a couple of tricks to help us draw this strap out so it draws out better. Alright, so I'm going to go back to my sculpt. And what I want is to have the strap connect from there to there, and then just be able to tweak it a bit. Let's see what happens if I just try to draw it right now. It's kind of massive and janky, and there's a lot going on. You can shrink the brush size down. Kind of starts off nice, but then it becomes, you know, a bit tangled and hard to deal with. You can try moving things around and see if we can get it looking a bit better. But it's kind of hard to deal with right here. So let's try, instead of just drawing it snapping, if I turn off snap, and still trying to snap to the mesh. Strange. Oh well. What I can do to make this a lot easier on me is to kind of make a simple tube where I want it to be, and then I can draw this line in. Let's see. I'll go with the curved tubes, and I'll kind of give myself a surface to draw on. Just with a very quick tube drawing. And I can move that around after the fact. And decide how my strap is going to sit on this whole thing. And I can drop that and just sculpt it like I would anything else. Now this isn't going to be an actual part of the mesh. This is just a part of the mesh so I can draw on top of it. And because I'm thinking about 3D printing this character, I'm going to try to make the strap kind of follow his body as much as possible and not have too much of a gap. A little bit of a gap is fine. Always got to be thinking about engineering when you're making something to 3D print. Alright, looks like the strap has to be a bit more over the arm, just looking at the concept art. And this is why it's good to, take a look at stuff, in a simple form like this. Because I think what I should do, here we go. I'm going to get these parts separated and just rotate the whole thing a bit. So I'll mask off this part, split unmasked, and I will merge that down into a couple of these other pieces. And I'll continue to use my curved tube to draw out the rest of these straps to kind of give myself an idea of what's going on here. That's massive. Still big. There we go. It's a good draw size. But it did not snap at all. Let's try again then. Nah, it's not snapping at all. So I'm going to go under my stroke and turn snap back on. Better, I think. Yeah, better. You can see some artifacting happening on my screen every time I work on this. I think that's probably a case of the spotlight being there. Nope, it's not spotlight. I press Shift Z to hide the spotlight, but that's still happening, so not sure what that is. Alright. Got strap numero 2. Same thing here. Gonna make sure it goes over the arm. You know what? I think this one's fine here. What I'd like to do is rotate this one a bit. Select only the one I want to work on. Move the strap over. Let's see. In this case, it might be easier to select the parts I don't want to affect. Control tap so that it selects everything else. Click in the center here to rotate, and then just rotate. That's what I want it to do. Just rotate the whole thing a little bit. That'll be better. Invert that selection, and then continue refining these straps. or at least the things we'll use to draw the snaps on our character. Let me make sure I'm checking Twitch and Facebook to answer any of your questions. Let's see. Looking good. Ernie, thanks for joining. What's going on? Masi Jenny, hi from Thailand. Hey. Alex Chapman, my man. Didn't know you work for Hero Forge. That's sweet. Thanks, Alex. It's definitely a fun gig. All right, checking out questions on Twitch. Okay. Okay, Robo Wheel saying pretty cool. I watched some of your videos. Used ZBrush for 8 years. Almost learn something every day. It's true, man. It's true. Learning all the time. Why didn't you use the array function? Don't know. Sometimes I like to just freehand things. At first I thought it was Gaara. Yeah, I think I can see the resemblance with the giant thing on his back from Naruto. Good evening, Gary Game. Evening for you, maybe. It's a Monday morning for me. Let's see. Art Dreamer here. Hi, I'm printing with a CR10. Gonna make some silicone molds for making resin copies of the original print. Anything I should know? I'm not sure what to ask. And I'm using PLA filament. Okay. That is a packed question because there's a lot to know in making resin copies from a print and then making silicone, bust out of it. Really depends what kind of stuff you're making, but I can give you a bit of a hint on that stuff. Since I did quite a bit of it recently. Alright, so this is a site of mine, 3dsmiths.com, and it started out as a venture with a bunch of 2D artists to take their 2D art and turn it into 3D sculpts. Worked with a few different artists, pitched around a bunch of maquettes. Basically, it didn't turn into a business, on its own because with resin busts and casts and 3D print artist copies and sculpts, a lot of the time the 2D artist wants the 3D artist to take on the financial risk and put all the investment in themselves. And that's not ideal. Ideally, it would be 50-50. But what I decided to do with this business, since I had already made a few different maquette prototypes and 2D translations, was turn it into a development shop where I work with a lot of clients to take their 2D ideas, make them 3D, and we can make small runs of like resin casts. Or what I prefer to do is make one-off just trophies or 3D printed animation maquettes for their pitches. So if you scroll down here on my 3dsmiths.com site, you can kind of see the process of what it takes to make something start to finish. So you go from 2D, you make your first pass in 3D. This character is super stylized, so it's a really fun job. And then, you work with the artists on their feedback. Ideally, the artists can do some drawovers and tell you what they like, what they don't like. And that's a good 2D artist. You finalize the sculpt. There's a quick keyshot render. And then you print it out. So this was printed on a Form 2. If you're printing on a CR10, there may be a bit more lines, build lines. So you may want to use something like XTC 3D to clean them up. I'll show you that in a second. But there's the cleaned up thing. And you can use that for a silicone mold. There's a silicone mold built by my friend Simon. And then you can pour resin into to make resin casts. So that's the process you're talking about, Art Dreamer. And since you're working with a CR10, I'll recommend this product right here. Let me make this window a bit larger so you can see what I'm drawing out. Okay, so this is XTC 3D. It's a product by Smooth On, I believe. Yeah, Smooth On right there. That's the name of the company. And XTC 3D is pretty ideal for FDM printing. And what you can do is just basically it's like a two-part mix. You mix it and then you just brush it onto your 3D prints, and it'll have basically smooth out those prints. It'll fill in the build lines. So now if you have a lot of detail, you may not want to do this because it's going to fill in some of that detail. But if you've got a stylized mesh like this boxer you see on the screen here, you know, something like that, the XTC 3D will just make it so smooth and clean, and then you can use, you know, you can prime it down on top, paint it, and then use it for resin casting. So that's one thing I'd recommend if you're trying to make resin cast from PLA or, you know, basically FDM prints. If you're doing it from the Form 2 or Formlab stuff, you can just prime the prints directly after you clean them up and start molding and casting. Yeah, so I hope that tip helped. Let me know if you have any other questions in that regard. I mean, it's another whole lesson unto itself. Got some more people joining. Miguel Guerrero. What's up, Miguel? Thanks for joining, brother. Good luck in your ZBrush presentation at the summit later this week. I saw Miguel's been practicing on his wife and daughter. That's what we do, man, when we got to practice a presentation. All right, back of the sculpt here. All right, it's looking better, but I want to make sure the strap is kind of strappy, like it's actually doing what it's supposed to, because that's what I'm going to use to draw it on top. Looking at the concept art along the side, and 2D is the kind of thing you can kind of cheat a bit and make it, you know, work for you. But in 3D, you don't really have that many. It has to work. It has to look right. So I'm gonna select these two pieces. Come over here. Just rotate the whole thing in a bit. I'll bring both of these straps in a bit. Move the whole thing down a bit. Do a quick rotation. Make sure I'm staying even with the rest of my mesh. And move this whole thing forward a bit. Alright, so basically, since the two front arms are up at the top, these two pieces up at the top need to be closer to each other. These guys need to be a bit closer to each other. These ones along the side, I can do something else. Since they're along the side of the character, I can bring them all off to the side a bit. That way the straps will actually have something to connect into. And this is the kind of thing you have to do when you're working on client-side sculpts. You know, because 2D to 3D is not straightforward. It's always an art. There's always a bit of noodling and figuring it out. That's interesting. No idea what happened there. Let's just grab that, move that down a bit. Cool. Grab that, move that up a bit. All right, let's take a look. And that's much better. Now I have something for the strap to go into along the sides. And now this can go more over the shoulder too. There. Cool beans. All right, so that should be pretty neat to draw this stuff onto. Scale that down a bit, or push it in a bit. And let's do some straps along the sides here. I'm going to turn these arms off for now. Just less stuff on while I work. And let me save this scene again. I don't really trust autosave. Not sure about you guys. Sometimes it just saves at the worst possible time. Alright, let's turn the music back on. Grenade TR on Twitch saying hi. How's it going, Grenade? That's the fun thing about streaming. You get to say, how's it going, Grenade? Alright, going back to my curved tube brush now. I'm going to click on this piece again. Let's draw this strap again. Maybe make it a bit smaller. Alright, it's looking pretty cool. Drop it. And let's move the curve in. I might do this same technique to improve the tubes that we've already drawn out. We'll see. I don't need that for the mini, so I might leave those alone. Alright, I might actually rotate this a bit so it's more flush with the body as well. Just kind of figuring it out as I go. Like you do. Alright, that'll be nice and clean. Let's rotate these guys. Like so. And I want to be a bit careful not to rotate too much. I'll probably have to do the same on this side. Rotate like so. And if I'm doing that, I might as well do the tops. The thing with transpose, you got to find the line. You got to go to the angle you want. Usually I hold shift as I drag, and then I find it. Alright. Now if I don't want to just keep having the mask, I can use my Move Topological brush to select these tubes, and then when I click on them, that's the only thing that'll be selected. That's nice. I want to give it a sense that this backpack is really straining to be on this character, or the character is straining to keep the backpack on, because it looks like a really heavy thing. So you got to think about the direction of these curves. Like if this was just kind of upwards like this, then it doesn't look like it's got a lot of tensile strength. It doesn't have a pull on the character. So it needs to be a bit lower so you can tell, okay, this character is, you know, pulling it on. Maybe have it in a bit as well, closer to the body. Yeah, that'll be good to draw it on. Looks like on this side I can pull it in quite a bit more. I think probably in general I might move the whole thing. Just a smidge. So let's select these tubes. I'm actually going to pop them off on their own layer. Split. Unmask points. And I'm going to rotate this whole thing just a little bit. So it's more lined up with the body and chest, kind of flat against him. Kind of move it in, kind of bury it in a bit as well. In 3D printing, you want the meshes to kind of be interconnected, you know, just kind of buried into each other, so that way when you dynamesh them later, they'll just become a single mesh. Intersecting, that's the word I was looking for. Intersecting meshes. Yeah, in this case, if it's not intersecting too much, I'll just pull the chest out. We'll come to that in a bit. Let's finish these straps. What I want to do is go back to my curved tube, not snap, curved tube, and draw the last one. Probably draw it on here. It's with all of its other buddies. Push that in, smooth it down. Cool. Alright, that's looking nice. What I want to do is turn off a few of these other pieces. Let's see. Let's select that. Let's see, and that. Let's have these tubes kind of live on their own subtool. I can turn them off. Alright, there we go. So now we've got all the tubes in place for where we want our straps, and now we can use that IMM brush we created earlier. Oh, this one, the PMD 3D cube. Let's try it out. I'm going to click Save, just in case. Robust Dust saying, hey man, cool stream, very informative. You're welcome, dude. Alright, let's try this out. So I'm going to basically follow along this tube to draw out my curve, and there you go. There's my curved strap coming in pretty nicely. There's some rotation happening right there, which we can tweak out, but that's basically the shape we're looking for in a strap. Make this a bit smaller. Let's try again. So if I tend to rotate my hand alongside a mesh, it's going to rotate the whole thing. So maybe I don't do that. Maybe I find the angle where it'll be mostly straight. I'm going to kind of do it straight. So there you go. There's like even less deformation on it now. You can even try the other thing, which is to do it as a line and just see what happens. Solo it out. Ha, no, that doesn't work. If it would snap as a line, that would be dope. Let's see. If we can make it snap and be as a line. Nope, that don't work. Fun thought though. Turn off as a line. I'll leave snap on. And let's just draw it out. Alright, that's pretty close to what I was thinking. At least that lines up really nicely on this end. And we can rotate the ones up there. So I'll drop this now. Let's draw the other ones. And we can refine. Cool. That one's much cleaner. Well, one weird janky bit. There we go. And same thing here. This one will be a bit trickier. In finding the angle. Whoa. I don't know. Sometimes I just redraw things if they're janky. Doesn't matter because I'll end up rotating them anyway. But that's looking good. There you go. Drop those 4. And what I'll do now is I'll probably select these bottom pieces. And I'll separate them off onto their own mesh, but I won't delete them. They might come in handy for filling in the bottom of the straps later. There we go. Split unmasked points. Alright. Hide those. And then we're left with just our straps. So that technique worked pretty well to give us like the starting point of what we're going to be using. Now, since all of these are kind of on their own, and it's hard to see right now because it got really big really quickly. And that's one thing you've got to be sure of when you're working with insert mesh brushes. You want to decimate them down before you create an insert mesh, because when you draw them out, they'll just be, you know, if you especially draw out that many straps, it went up to 14 million polys so quickly. I'm going to go to Decimation Master, pre-process, and then decimate it. And I'm going to save. Alright. Argishti28 on Twitch is asking, how can I make articulated figures? I really like the live Boolean way of doing it, but I can't find any resources to learn from. That's a good question, Argishti. I'll show you a trick right now. Alright, looks like ZBrush is saved. I'm going to poke it, poke the beast. There we go, it's alive, good. I'm going to go to Z plugin, pre-process current, and it's going to process through all of the straps. There's a lot of straps to process through. Might take a second. And I'll show you a way to do a live Boolean kind of articulation. Alright, you can see the pre-processing is started. Should have really done this beforehand because now it's taking a while. Alright, no sense in watching paint dry with this pre-processing, so I'll play something fun for you guys. This is the first dev diary that I just made for the Fungusaurus game that I'm working on, which is just an independent project. Me, my wife, a few friends of ours. Let's see if this shows for you. Yeah, you can see it. And this is kind of the stuff that I'm working on when I've now 3D printed these toys and done the prototyping. Now I want to bring them to life in augmented reality, kind of like a Pokemon Go Tamagotchi style game. So this is the kind of stuff you need to do to work on it. Hey everyone, I'm Aiman.
I'm Fox.
And we're the creators of Fungusaurus. Last year, we did a Kickstarter campaign to create our first line of Fungusaurus mystery box toys and an AR mobile game.
This was successfully funded, and we have now completed a toy production.
Yay! It was pretty challenging, but we found a factory that specialized in dinosaurs. We did all of our injection molding, and then everything was painted by hand. We did a thorough quality control check, and the toys are now all packaged and shipping across the ocean. We're now switching gears to be full-on in game development mode. Making an indie video game isn't exactly a walk in the park. So for this first video, I wanted to show a range of things that we've been working on. We hired an agency to help us with marketing and strategy. We created wires to plan out the app UI design. We had some fun animating a launch screen. And with the help of our developer Zach, we implemented all of our new UI into the app. Somebody's hungry. We've also started the first round of beta testing. If you want to join the beta test, go to fungusaurus.com and sign up for our email updates. That's all for now, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to click subscribe to be notified about our next dev diary, and follow us at Fungusaurus on... Alright. Quick short dev diary. Hopefully the pre-processing is done with. But I just wanted to show you that because like how should I explain this? I'm kind of proud of the fact that we're working on a game, that we're starting from scratch as an indie team. And talking to the marketing guys, they're like, make a dev diary, make a dev diary. So I started looking at a bunch of dev diaries and now making my own. Oh, damn it. I hate it when it does this. So it says cannot decimate the pre-process. You have to do it again. Sometimes ZBrush does this where you click pre-process and it just doesn't do it. You need to do it twice. It's a pain. But I will go ahead and pre-process it again. And hopefully it'll get done this time. I turn off everything else in scene just so it can do it a bit lighter. Alright, got another question also. Which drawing table are you using? That's a good question. I don't know what you mean, Matthew the artist. What do you mean, what drawing table? Or which drawing table? Are you referring to some sort of app stuff, or are you referring to like an actual table to draw on? Tablet. Okay, gotcha. I wasn't really using a drawing tablet. Right now, I'm on this computer. I'm working on a Wacom Cintiq 27 HD. So it's like a Cintiq. So it's actually the whole monitor is something I can draw on. And that one's pretty dope. I really like that. It took me like 6 years to save up to get this though. So, you know, take your time. I started out with like a Bamboo, and then I had like a Wacom Intuos 3, and then now I've got a Cintiq. Alright, RoboWheels is saying, have a question about the default brushes. I want to have the lazy mouse at 40 and want that on some default brushes to come up when I start ZBrush. Okay, so you're saying you want to have a specific setting on your lazy mouse and you want that to be on your default brushes. Alright, I can try to answer that question once this pre-processing is done. So I got 2 questions to answer. Cool, cool. All's well in Facebook land. Yeah, sorry about this pre-processing taking so long. It's kind of like watching paint dry, but hopefully it'll get done soon. Definitely want to do this before I move forward, because otherwise it's going to be like just, I don't know, it'll be way too heavy of a scene. Let me put that back up. Entertain you guys while this happens. Let's see, what can I show you? What can I show you? All the print stuff I'm doing, I can't show you. It's all like NDA stuff. Thinking. By the time I think of something, this pre-processing will be done. Alright, so the 2 questions I have was about live Booleaning and articulated figures. And then, let's see, maybe I have some of those lying around. Well, kind of. Let's talk about the basics of articulation. We just got this character here. Kind of taped a Superman cape onto him. Let's take that off for a second. So we can take a look at like this and look at the basics of what articulation is for a human bipedal character. These things are really useful, by the way, if you want to just kind of have something you can quickly pose and draw from. Alright, so when we're talking about the basics of articulating a character, and it's really useful to know how to do this in ZBrush now, because previously you used to have to like make all the pieces separately, have all these bolts through them, have like a rubber band and stuff going through it, and you still can. But the good thing about ZBrush now is you can live Boolean to have something that's kind of pre-articulated spit out of ZBrush. So you just need to know really what kind of range of motion are you looking for, and that refers to how much this can bend. So you see this character's range of motion for this piece, it goes, almost a full 180. It can go back all the way to forward. And our elbow can't really do that in real life. Our elbow is basically not 90. This would be 90. Our elbows are basically a little bit more than 90 degrees, like 110 degrees. But this character obviously has a lot more range of motion. So you can expand the range of motion beyond what's possible if you want. So that's the first thing to consider with articulation. And the other thing to consider is, let's see, range of motion and, oh yeah, basically cleanliness. So with extra range of motion, you're going to have a very visible joint right there. And you don't necessarily want that. Sometimes you want to make a Barbie. And with a Barbie, you don't want to show it. You want to have it be a lot cleaner. So sometimes you sacrifice range of motion for cleanliness and appeal. So now let me show you, now that ZBrush is done pre-processing. We'll show you a little bit of articulation. Hopefully now I can just go to decimate current. And maybe. It's thinking. There we go. All right, decimated down to 2.8 million. It's still quite heavy. The good thing is I don't need to, again, pre-process if I want to decimate. I can just reduce my number and click decimate again. So for those of you that didn't know that, there's a pro tip. Don't pre-process twice. Just do it once. You don't need to wait. All right, there we go. Still a bit high, 1.4 million polys. Let's make it 5%. All right, that's pretty solid. All right, now that it's all, there, I'm going to click auto groups to make all of these groups their own color. Look at those rainbow straps. Because what we're going to do is just rotate them individually a little bit to, align them perfectly the way we want with the character. And let's turn everything back on. Let's turn off the stuff we don't want. And we can take a look. Got a couple of extra stuff here. Turn that off. Whoop, what is that? Do straps out of his head. So there we go. We've got the straps kind of blocked in. And now let me show you some articulation stuff, and then we'll continue refining this character. Logan 3. All right, 9 o'clock, so I'm not going to take too long. Let's see. All right, Cimmerian King is asking another question, but I'll get to that in a second, dude. Let me show you some articulation stuff first. Some basic stuff. All right, let me start with something like an existing figure. Let's see, demo head there. I'd rather have a character, not a dog. Start with the demo soldier. But I don't want to quit out of my project. I'd rather just load in a tool. So I'll go to Tool and load in demo soldier. From the light box, draw him down. And in this case, I just want just the body. So I'll just have the body turned on. I'll duplicate it. And say if I wanted to articulate this character, how do I go about that? Well, it's really quite simple now in ZBrush to do something like that. You don't want any subdivisions. So find your proper subdivision, dynamesh the whole thing so that it's like a solid mesh. And I'm going to just do this kind of low res and shitty, but you guys will get the idea. Now I've got this brush that I've built, IMM Keys Articulation, and I'll be sharing this when I start teaching my Mold3D class again on 3D printing for ZBrush artists. But basically it's got a lot of keys that I've built based on things I've seen. Like this one I built based on a Joseph Drust hinge key. And what I can do with it, it's basically just one decimated piece, but I'm going to draw it out and I'm going to rotate it in place and I'll use it for my live Boolean. So hold on. Let's switch to a different tool. I don't know. Let's just do V for move. Okay. Hide the spotlight. So I've drawn it out now and I'm going to rotate it around. And then I'll move it into my mesh. So this point right there is where the articulation is going to be. Not the fastest way to move it in place. Usually I'd like draw it out better. Kind of just jumped into it. And this side is where it's just kind of going to hang out, and the other side is where the hinge is going to be. So I want to drag this hinge into place. Kind of like at the arm. Right there, basically. Now the good thing with ZBrush and Live Boolean especially is that you're not tied down with like the first place you drop it. You can kind of move it in place and figure it out as you go. You can figure out the scale, you can figure out the position. And I'll show you very simply. You gotta split it off. So I'm gonna split unmasked points now. There it is. So now I've got that on its own layer. And I'm going to click on this button right here next to, it kind of looks like a half moon shape. I'm going to click on that, and that's going to make it a subtractor. So now it's going to subtract from the mesh above it. All I need to do is go to render and turn on render booleans. And there we go. Now you can see it working already. So you can see the backside is going to have a whole chunk taken out of it. And the front side, it's going to just basically try to be as clean as possible, and then it should be able to rotate. So let's just keep working it a little bit better. I'm going to turn on transparency mode and move it just a smidge. Might want to move it back a little as well. And this is the fun part about Live Boolean. Look at that. I can move it as I go. How fun is that? So I can adjust my pivot. I can adjust where these pins are going to be, and I can move it up and down, and I can try to really find the angle where there isn't that much damage done to the back, you know? That's looking pretty clean from that side too. Maybe a slight rotation. Let's try. To kind of go more in line with how an arm would actually bend. It's tough sometimes to find that right angle. All right, cool. So once you've got that in place to where you want it, you can just go to, I think you just render booleans, you process it here. There's the render booleans. I think there's an apply button last time I checked for Live Boolean. Maybe it's under tool. That would make more sense. I think you go under geometry. Let's see, where's the booleans at? Subtool, geometry, booleans, 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 booleans. I know there was like a render booleans and then there's a apply booleans. Now there's two different ways we could do it, so I could show you the other way, but I'd rather show you the easy way if I can remember where it was. Anyone on stream remember where Live Booleans is? Here we go. It's under subtool. So you have to go under subtool, Boolean, and then make Boolean mesh. So I'm going to just click on that and let's see what happens, because I think these are the two pieces I need, and I'll click make Boolean mesh. Thinking about it, union remeshing in progress. Might actually do a whole lesson on this later. Don't want to pull it away from us too much. All right, got a few people volunteering. It's under subtools. Thank you guys. All right, here we go. And it should have made a new mesh for us. So now if I click polyframe, I'm going to just unify the groups, and I'm going to click auto groups, and you can see what's happening here. It separated it out for us. Now this was a kind of low-res mesh, low-res Dynamesh, so don't care too much about the detail, but look at how it laid these parts out. In one click, we've got an articulated hand, and we can try it out. Let's do a split, unmask points. Well, just do a group split, because it's already got polygroups. And we've got 3 pieces now. We've got this pin, which basically holds the top and the bottom together. We've got the bottom hand, solo that out, with, the curve built into it, and the range of motion. Like, this is basically the stopper for its range of motion, the front and the back. And what we can try, let's see. Let's just try rotating the arm right now. It's hard to find the right pivot point for rotation. I'm just going to kind of wing it right now, just from the middle of this thing to here. But you can see I did this the wrong way already. This character should be able to rotate forward. But what I did was I did the pivot space on the back. So now his arm only rotates backwards. So that's the kind of thing you need to double check. But that's Live Boolean in a nutshell for you. It can be really powerful to help you very quickly lay out your mesh. And if you make a dumb mistake like this, you can rotate it around and see it in action live. You can turn on transparency mode to really see what's going on. Other way. Too far. There we go. And move that in place. This time when we live Boolean, it should look more like an actual hinge in the right direction. Rotate that forward a bit. Rotate it around a bit. And move it down. Let's try live Boolean again. Let's see what's happening. So that's looking, that makes more sense now. Let's move it around. Let's move it this way. Maybe in a bit. No, too far. Just move it out a bit. Maybe down a bit as well. So live Boolean is probably my favorite way to do articulation for a character now. It's just so much easier than the way it used to be, where you had to sculpt it all out manually, bit by bit. But you got to find the right angle to hit all of these Booleans. And that's what takes a bit of time to figure that out. And you got to really try it. You got to just print it and then see if it's working or not. There. Now when I live Boolean it, it should rotate the hinge in the right direction. So in any case, if you are interested in learning more about this stuff, I'll do a little, just stay tuned to my stream and I'll announce when I'm launching the class, and I'll share all of these little brushes with you guys. Got a tapered square, got a hinge, got another limited hinge joint, got a ball joint. So yeah, we'll talk about all that articulation stuff in the future. Let me answer a couple more questions. Let's see. I'll probably give it a little preview on Twitch and YouTube in ZBrush here to show you the articulation like I'm doing today. But if I do an in-depth class, I'll probably have it on a separate platform. All right, Cimmerian King was saying, what do you do with these dinosaur things you make? Is it simply a personal project? Well, it started off like that, Cimmerian. Let's see here. So this is the Fungusaurs now, if you want to follow Instagram.com Fungusaurs. And now we're trying to build like a whole brand out of it. Let's see. All right. Let me load up this OBS. Make this a bit larger so you can see. So though it started out as just some 3D print prototypes, now I've got it to a point where we're going to launch like our own little blind box toy set. So it's going to be like a mystery box toy set. Hopefully I'll get it distributed in a bunch of stores. But the idea is that you get a box, you don't know which one of these 8 characters you're going to get, and you kind of keep collecting until you get them all. And the extra bit is that there's going to be the, hard to see, but there's the app, and then when you scan the character, it should kind of come alive, so the toy will actually be used to bring your character to life in augmented reality. At least that's my pitch, and that's what I'm working on. So it started... Whoa. So it started out with just like a bunch of, 3D printed characters that I had made. These little dinosaur mushroom hybrids. Started like mini collectible toys, And then now I'm trying to make an app out of it. After taking a year to make the actual toy line. It took a while. It took a while, and I go through the process on my Instagram if you want to follow it and see. Whoop. Okay. So you can see kind of like the slow build. Promotions, us figuring out object tracking, creating a character, rigging it up, making these enamel pins, going to like expos, but I even go into like factory processes. Like there's the boxes ready to ship. There's actually the factory production side, with all these people painting my toys. So it's pretty surreal to watch this whole process kind of grow from one print that I did with this machine behind me to, getting to a full-on production of 16,000 toys and going through the steps of injection molding and tooling. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Samirian King. Another question we had was from Robo Wheels, and it was about the lazy mouse at 40 and wanting that on some of the default brushes and having that load up on start. Okay, so if you, let's see, how should I explain this? Delete all on these, don't need them in my scene. Alright, so say you've got a brush and say it's something like damn standard, and you know you're always going to use this damn standard brush with the lazy mouse, right? So you can go to your brush, let's see, I'm going to find a mesh that's already kind of, there we go. So you can go to your damn standard brush, you can turn up your lazy radius. I think for you guys that's going to be under stroke, lazy mouse, lazy radius, to whatever you want it to be. And that's basically going to help. Man, everything's like there. That's basically going to help you have like a smooth stroke like that. So if your lazy mouse is set to 1, it's a bit harder to have, it basically will be exactly where you draw it, right? But if you have your lazy mouse set really high, it's going to follow along and kind of curve after the fact. So your lazy mouse is kind of a preference you have to choose. And I kind of leave it as default and, work it as I want. But if you like your lazy mouse to be, let's see, just crank up the lazy smooth, crank up the lazy radius, and you say you want it at 70. Now you can go to your preferences and you can save a few different configs. So you can store your config, you can save your UI, and with your brushes you can save your brush settings too. Now I'm not 100% if storing your config does save your brush settings, but I think it does. So try that. Try storing config, closing out a ZBrush and opening it up again, and see if it stores your brush settings. If not, then you're actually going to need to go into your brush settings and type it in. I think there's a better way of doing it, but that's the way I remember. Going to Preferences, Store Config. But that'll save everything in the scene. So it'll save the models and tools you've got open, the UI that you've created, the size of your document. So just try it out a few times and you'll get the hang of it. All right, going back to this project, I want to just shape it up a little bit more in the last half hour and, get it done. All right, Bcost is saying, how you feel seeing all the sweatshop work? It wasn't a sweatshop, dude. I mean, I used a factory in China for my production just because they offered me the best cost to labor. And everyone was super friendly. Everyone was being treated really well. No one's underage. The factory is well ventilated, well lit up. And, you know, it's cool to hire, 30 people at a time to work on my project. I don't see it as forced labor because I'm meeting these people. I'm hanging out with them. I spent like 2 whole days hanging out with the factory workers and people, and everyone's really nice. They're actually, that whole town is a factory town, Shantou in China. So that's the primary employment there, is in toy factories all across. So I had to pick a good one. I'm paying extra so that I can have a good factory, responsible, kind of sustainable, and I'd probably use them again for my second production. So it's not just trying to cut costs, it's trying to find a partner that can give you a good deal, and then you go to the factory to make sure you're happy with it. Some of the factories I've checked out, I've heard some horror stories. Like, I've heard stories of people doing a walkthrough of a factory and they kind of clean it up for you, but at the end you walk out and your shoes are melting because of the poor safety conditions, and they have acid and stuff all over the floors. So you got to pick your factory carefully. It took me a while to find mine. All right, so back at this now. We've got these straps in place. I don't want to spend too long just fussing over the straps, but I do want to kind of get them all rightly positioned. And then I'll move on a little bit to something else. Honestly, it's hard in like a streaming format to show a complete character done from start to finish, because this is the third session and feel like I've spent most of the time just working on the backpack. So I'll probably start working this project a little bit more on my own time. So that I can show you guys progress in a more reasonable pace. Now that all these straps are kind of on their own though, the cool thing we can do is use move topological to kind of move them independently, or even select them just bit by bit and rotate each part individually. And that's pretty powerful. And that's the power and advantage of having them all as their own subtool. Moving and rotating them individually. I might end up, making them thicker or smaller anyways. There we go. Now that one, this one, middle one. Sometimes ZBrush fights you. I think ZBrush always fights me. There we go. Right. Rotate that in place. This guy, might want to move it up a bit. Or you know what, I might actually just toss that bit. So let's hide that, because I think I've got too many pieces there. And let's invert. And I can delete hidden. Then just move this piece down. There we go. Cleaner, faster. Sometimes simplicity is the best policy. All right, I could tweak these straps forever, but I'm not going to do that. Let's move on and try to get. Let's move on and try to get a little bit more shape into everything. And I'll pull up the concept on the right. Let's see. All right, Bcost is asking, really like mixing digital sculpting with real-world sculpts. Have you had any experience with bronze work? Kind of, sort of. Let's see. I've done small bronzes. And that's just a matter of sending your print over to be cast. But then one thing you could do is I did this project with a friend, Daniel De Leon, and we basically just sculpted this character up together, Evil Knievel, not Knievel, Evil Knievel. I guess he used to be a really famous Daredevil bike stunt guy. And his son opened a pizza shop, so he made like a faux bronze sculpture for him. And this was sculpted in ZBrush, and it was actually milled out of foam. So you don't actually need to go bronze necessarily. This whole piece, it's my height, but it's very light. You can actually just lift the whole thing up very easily because it's milled out of foam and then finished with a patina to look like bronze. So the one thing I'd recommend is bronze is kind of hard to work with. You need to find a metal specialist who can do the lost wax cast pouring stuff for you. But look into actually faux bronze stuff as well, because it's a valid option. All right. I'm going to turn up the music again. And let's crank on this for about half an hour. Cool. Move this up out of the way a little bit. Open up the concept art. And let's get cracking. Alright. The face looks like it'll need quite a bit more detailing. The hair too. But looking at mini scale, I think it'll be fine. Like at 28 millimeters, it'll give us the detail we want. So I just want to do a bit more of the big base shapes blocking in. I want this to be a hand. Let's see. I think there's IMM body parts which have a hand. So I'll draw a hand in place from those. Move that up. Rotate it around. It looks like the thumb's on the wrong side, so let me split this off. And I will mirror this over. So let's do geometry. Let's see. Let's do a subtool master mirror. On the x-axis, let's see what happens. There we go. Cool. So this arm then I'll move up into place over here. I'll replace out that previous one that was there. And this arm now can be over here. Too low. Sometimes hard to move these with just the transpose. In that case, this whole this gimmick thing can come in handy. Moving these things around. Just call it a gimmick thing? What is this called? Gizmo, I think is what they call it. Alright, got that kind of sort of in place. I think I need to scale it up a bit larger. His hands are just much larger and thicker. And I can even run a deformation inflate on the whole thing. Just to make those fingers a bit beefier. And kind of interconnected so that when I dynamesh, they'll merge together. Good thing about it being such a low-res topology, you can just select it, invert, and rotate. And move it up.
All right, let's toss this now. Now this one looks like it's already a fist. So I don't know if I want to use like an open hand. Let's see if I had any hand IMM meshes. Yeah, there's one. The hand gestures IMM mesh. I got this from Bad King. You can look up badking.au, I believe. There we go. Draw a kind of pre-made fist down. Rotate that in place for the other hand. Then it's just a matter of matching the scale to what I've got going on already. What? Split unmasked points there. Delete that. Delete this. And just move this in place again. Like I said, I'll have to adjust the scale, make these hands a bit larger, and probably rotate them. That looks about right. Now the tube actually goes into the hand. So I need to move that up and over into the hand. I think the hand still needs to be bigger. Yeah, it looks small in comparison to the character. Strong characters have large hands. But now I don't want it to block too much of this whole, middle chest plate either. So I want to kind of, following the reference, but kind of not following the reference sometimes too. Here we go. Adjust those sleeves. Adjust that tube. That tube is massive right now. Kind of smooth it down a little bit. Okay. It's feeling right. It's got to feel right. Now this hand looks like it's way too big. Let's move it around a bit. Let's move that thumb up. Sometimes I forget I have a tablet and I just use my mouse for a while. Then I'm like, why am I using a mouse when I've got a tablet? Does that happen to you guys? Mouse is pretty useful sometimes. Alright, this needs a bit more geometry, so I'm going to divide it once. Still trying to keep it pretty low poly. But I want the shapes there. So when I do a test on this, test print, it reads. Hands are kind of a whole thing into themselves. It could take 2 hours just to work on the perfect hand. Good thing is, this character is kind of stylized, so I can use H polish, kind of flatten out some of these pieces, and it doesn't need to be a perfect hand. It's more of a glove than a hand. Use my clay brush, divide it again. Just polish the whole thing a bit. Make it feel more like a glove. You can even use something like the clip curve brush to just clip the ends, flatten those out. Square this out a bit too, using the pinch. At least want to carry the thumb shape properly over, so it feels like a thumb. Always get caught up in hands. Easy and fun thing to get caught up in. Understandably so, but they're important. Okay, let's go back and see. All right, thumb's getting a bit long. Just shrink that down in. Let's bury all of this kind of into the base a bit better. That into the sleeve a bit better as well. Base getting in my way. And you see other stuff you want to fix, just go ahead and fix it. Okay, starting to look like what we want. Looking closer to like the reference as well. Okay. Some inflation going under there as well. Cool. All right, I'll probably will continue to keep refining that thumb and that hand later, as well as this whole mesh. Just looking at the clock, trying to get to 9:39, trying to get to 10. Trying to see what we can do today that would be the most productive. Inflate this whole arm up a bit as well. The other hand, divide that once as well. All right, what I want to do with like not a lot of time I've got left in the stream today, wanted to take it a bit further, but I think it's at a good enough point where once it's at about that size, it should print well enough for us to know what's working, what's not, already at that scale. And I like to get a print going as soon as possible these days, especially a small one, because I've got the printer right there. So let's get this printing today. I don't know. Let's just see what happens. I've got 20 minutes to pull it off. I'm going to basically go ahead and merge visible. And what that's going to do is place it all over here as its own mesh. I'm going to click divide a couple of times because there's a few things that aren't very divided. It's going to crank though. There we go. 21 million polys, that's solid. I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh now. Delete lower and Dynamesh. Geometry, Dynamesh. Let's try what happens to 128 resolution. You know what? Let's try something first like really small, like 16. Make sure we can actually run it. All right, so 16 is way too low resolution for that. So undo that. Let's try 128 now. All right, so 128 resolution yields us a mesh that's 190K polys. It's far from ideal, but it's at least you can start seeing where the pieces are all coming together. All right, it's actually working pretty well for me. Let's try upping the resolution to maybe 400, and I think that should do it for us. All right, there we go. 1.9 million polys, but I think that gives us the mesh we want. Unify all the poly groups, and yeah, we can see that it's working. All right, now 1.9 mil is still a bit high for actually printing, so I'm going to pre-process and decimate this. Rufus W on Twitch is saying you could use remesh by union as a quick way to merge everything. For sure, Rufus, I'll try that out. Just kind of doing it the way I've always done it. You know, before ZBrush updates so fast, I can't even keep up these days with like, well, not these days. In general, I'm always like an update behind all the coolest, newest features. I feel like that's true for everyone. I know like some of the best sculptors I know, they use like damn standard brush and clay, and that's it. You know, like they don't rely on any of ZBrush's fancy tools, but it's so cool to have these tools come up every year. Looking forward to see what they launch or announce this year at the ZBrush Summit this coming week. Who's going, by the way, to the ZBrush Summit? Anyone in LA for the summit next week? I know a bunch of people are in THU right now in Malta. Sad to miss that this year. I was there last year this time. All right, that is pre-processed. Let's see if it did it in the first try, because I said it does it in 2 tries for me often. Looks like it's working. There we go. 380,000 polys, all merged together, all one piece, all one mini. But we've got a few gaps, so it'll be good to see how these print, just kind of as is. And then we can think about how we may have to slice and key some pieces off if needed. But right now I'm just going to print this character in a miniature scale. And it'll probably look a bit like, now that's a bit too colorful gray. That's too blinny. kind of like this. This is what the resin print's going to look like when it comes out. But what I want to do now is basically export this character before I've really worked it up. There's a lot to do on the face, a lot to do on the clothing and body. But at this point, since I'm going to be printing this about this scale, it'll be good to see once it's printed and know for me the proportions are working, the pose is working, stuff like that. So I'm going to, now that it's decimated, I'm going to go to, see here, 3D Print Hub, and I'll click Update Size Ratios. Doesn't really matter which one you select because we're going to tell it what to do. I'm going to go to millimeters, and I'm going to basically tell it in the highest axis, in the tallest axis. Now this is going to be a bit hard to figure out because most of the characters I work with, excuse me, they have a very obviously taller point, but this character is kind of a square. Looks like 90, and the X is the tallest attribute, and the Y here is 83. Z is 88. So what I want to do is set the Y to 28 millimeters. Excuse me. I'll set this to 30 millimeters, and let's see what that looks like. Go to Z plugin. I've only got the one subtool. Let's rename it. Let's see. Logan Mini Print Test. And export to STL at 30 millimeters height. So I'll call it 30 mm. Now we could export it as an STL and bring it into any printer, but since I've already got a button in here to send to PreForm, let's try that out. It should send it directly to Form 2's print prep software PreForm. We got Direwolf420 on Twitch. He's saying, I'll be volunteering this year at a booth. Which booth will you be at, dude? I'll definitely check it out. All right, so it opened up PreForm and it's asking repair the mesh. So let's go ahead and click repair. Carlos Lugo on Facebook. Hello from Mexico. What up, Carlos? Hola, I guess. I should really know more Spanish than that. All right, cool. Now I've got a clear resin tank in here, but I think this will be better printing gray. So let me go scroll down to gray. I think I've got a gray V4 going. So there we go. There's our mesh at 30 millimeters height, about miniature scale. 28 millimeters is usually miniature scale. So we can start prepping this for print. Now I can't just print this as is. There's some like loose hanging bits, and if I just print it as is, a lot of points won't have any support. Like you see that area that's the bottom of the backpack just building without any support. That means it'll fail because you need some things to support a resin print. Same with this hand right here, just floating islands. So what I want to do is rotate this mesh a little bit. Let's do like that. And let's add our support. So I'll take the point size all the way down to bottom, and I'll click Generate Selected, leaving the density at 1. This software is called PreForm, by the way. This is Formlab's print prep software for 3D printing. Now there's a bunch of stuff happening here where the hair needs support because of the way it's flowing down, so it's drawing those supports directly on the character. I don't like that often. That kind of sucks. I hate supports on the character, but it's pretty smart about the way it's doing it. You know, just putting a few supports. But we can try orienting it differently, so maybe it'll need even less supports. Let's try. If I rotate it completely upside down, That may work, but then, I don't know, then there's a different kind of supports you'll need. So that's not ideal. I'll just rotate it like this and see what happens. You could also click on auto supports, and it'll basically auto orient, rotate, and add the supports to your model. All right, now I've got the supports off of the front side, but now it's adding them in along the back. But that's actually not bad. They're mostly off model, except for that one, but that's okay. This might give us an issue because it's kind of growing completely flat, but I think at miniature scale it might be all right. You can tweak orientation settings forever, trying to find like the best orientation for your models. In this case, I think it might be cool to go with the support lines. Just kind of give them some direction as to where to start there. All right, Direwolf saying I'll be signing in people for portfolio reviews. Nice. Yeah, I think a friend of mine is doing some portfolio reviews this year. Brian Jeffcoat from DreamWorks. Yeah, if you guys get a chance, definitely go for the portfolio reviews. ZBrush Summit is a good time. Good time to see a bunch of people I don't get to see all year. Robo Wheels. Damn, I can't shake this cough. Robo Wheels on Twitch is saying, wish I could go. One year I'd like to give a presentation how I use ZBrush as a disabled person. Running my computer with a switch under my foot. That's fascinating, dude. I'd love to see a presentation on that. So cool to see your, not letting your disability hold you back and doing what you want. Always inspiring to me. All right, that's looking good now. We've got the supports mostly off model, kind of drawing straight down. And so that should look pretty nice. Everything I can think of is supported. I'll probably go in and add a few really big supports. You can see the point size determines the size of the supports. And I like to add a few of these giant kind of anchor supports. And what that does is it makes sure the print doesn't fall off your printer. Fall off your build tray. Sometimes with the printer kind of moving up and down a lot, it drops the print. So that's why I like to go in and add these anchors. All right, cool. So we are ready to print this. I'll move it over so it's not in the center. If you keep using the center of your build tray, it'll kind of burn it out, Like you can only use, the lasers can only hit certain areas so long before the middle starts kind of just bubbling and then the tray becomes useless. So I like to position my prints all over the build platform whenever I can. All right, so there we go. I'm going to save this out as, let's see, Logan mini print test 30 millimeters. No, like that. And I'll call this PreForm. All right. Another thing is Formlabs software is pretty smart. It'll tell you if the printability is not right. So you can see the minima and you can add stuff where you need. So I'm going to go to Edit Supports, Add, shrink the point size all the way down, and I'll add a support right there where it needs it. Looks like it might need one right below that too. So I'll add a couple there. Neat. All right, so now that should be good to go. It's going to think about the printability, and it's saying about 3-hour print time, which is not bad. So next week when you guys join me for the stream, I'll show you this little mini print, all cleaned up, and then we will continue working on the sculpt. Cool. That is a go for print. So I'm just going to click on this yellow button. Well, let me save first. Click on this yellow button to send it to the printer. Upload job. Right now my printer's not connected, but I'll connect it in, and that's it. You just upload the job. It'll load it over to the printer, and you can press start. I'll need to switch out the resin trays and such, so I'll do this later. But thanks so much for joining me, everyone. It's already 10 o'clock almost, so I'm going to wrap it up a little bit early today. Let's see. Let's find a fun little fun material to showcase this off in. I like the red-blue materials. Where are those at? There it is, clay red-blue. Looks all sci-fi-y, sci-fi-tastic. Yeah, I might work on this a little bit more in my free time just to get it a bit further. Because I think we spent a total of maybe, I don't know, 4 hours on this so far. Laying out all the base shapes, figuring out the pose, working a bit up on the backpack, and today making these straps and, you know, just refining a bit. Refining the hands, adding those in. So, I don't know, it takes, you know, for a full character at pose, which I recommend doing, sculpting characters at pose to kind of find their life and stuff. It takes a good 8 to 16 hours for me to really figure out a character. And so far we're at about 4 hours, so yeah, it's just chugging along. Draw that out though. But anyways, thanks so much for joining me, guys. I will see you, if you're at the summit, I'll see you at the ZBrush Summit later this week. If you want to just follow me online, I'm Instagram, Aiman Akhtar 3D. That's spelled AKHTAR 3D. And you can see all the stuff I post. I share stuff for Fungusaurs. I regularly share the ZBrush stream stuff I'm working on. And all sorts of projects, you know. Videos for the new stuff that I print. There's a really, really big print that I did of one of the Hero Forge minis. Just as a mega. And you can scroll down and see some of my older work. There's like the Aquaman outfit that I 3D printed for myself. You can see the whole costume in place. So yeah, follow me on Instagram. That's Aiman Akhtar 3D. And join me next week in the stream. I think I'll probably try to going through October. Mondays, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. So I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining. Cheers.